Welcome to Business Central, the new face of the client session. We have prepared a lot of great content for you today, and we're happy to see you here. Before we start, we would like to introduce ourselves quickly. I'm Tomas Grubliauskas. I'm engineering lead at Business Central team responsible for desktop and mobile clients.
And my name is Andrea, Tino. You should know me by now. I also work in the client team with Tomas.
Yeah, Andrea, let's do our tradition of NAV TechDays and start giving first t-shirt today to a person who can answer a personal question about you.
How do you want to do that?
Does anyone know how many times Andrea has already presented at NAV TechDays? I'll give you a hint. It's less than 8 times.
3 times?
A bit more?
We said 4.
4.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's correct.
All right. And here comes the first t-shirt. Thank you.
Yeah, Andrea is quite seasoned presenter already at NAV TechDays. While we answering questions and giving away t-shirts, I would like to ask one more question. Do you remember what was the last thing we introduced last year in client session? What was the big new thing? It also was in a keynote this year.
Hint, I was on stage doing that. There was some pink involved.
Almost close, but it's related to the UI. I think you noticed the change.
What?
It's called modern. Modern UI. Someone said it.
You?
Cool.
Thank you.
So that was the last big thing we introduced last year, and in spirit of continuing from where we left, we would like to start this year's session with modern look and feel. We would like to introduce new components, new UI patterns, and also give a bit of backstory and decisions which went into making this UI. Next, we'll talk about productivity. We are continuously investing in productivity. We'll talk about some great new components and productivity features like advanced filtering. And you can bet that we're working on many more productivity features for Spring. Then we will talk about one Business Central app, which now connects to on-prem and cloud tenants. Lastly, we will wrap up with Q&A and answer your questions. So new look and feel. When users are using products in the cloud, they have different expectations. They expect the product to continuously evolve, improve, and adopt latest technical and design patterns. When we introduced Business Central brand, which unified on-premises and cloud offering, we wanted the users to associate these qualities with Business Central. And creating the new modern, refreshing the UI was one of the key cornerstones to achieve that mission. To do it from the get-go, we set some key goals for the modern UI. First of all, we wanted to align UI with other Microsoft productivity and business products. Then we wanted to reuse as much as possible existing application concepts and not unnecessarily introduce new ones, so users can adopt new UI with little or no partner work. We also wanted to architect the components in a way that they are ready for the future, so we can increment them and improve it incrementally. And we designed all the components from the ground up to be accessible, productivity in mind, and also scalable. To achieve these goals, the design and engineering teams worked in a tight collaboration in iterative development setup. We were coming up with different concepts, ideas, building prototypes, doing user testing, and repeating this until we would reach a result which met all of our goals. And you can imagine it's not always easy to say goodbye to a prototype which didn't work. It's very hard to discard something you loved initially, but we recognize that that is the way to improve the user experience and push it forward to the experience which users are delighted with. So Andrea is going to dive a little bit deeper into different building blocks which constitutes the modern UI and explain in more in detail our reasoning behind every single component. Here you go, Andrea.
Perfect. Thank you, Thomas. So let's get it started. This year, many things happened, and we released a lot. We actually went through 2 different releases. We had the spring release this year, and also the fall release. And we have introduced a lot of new things, as you probably noticed. A few of these things you've already seen during the keynote yesterday, and Arena went through them. You will see again some of these today, but the idea is that we will go through them a little bit more in details. And we start from the spring release, then we will move to the fall release. And in the spring release, we decided to put a lot of effort in restyling and refreshing our role centers. I mean, role centers are the first page we hit when we get in Business Central. That's what we would call home. That's why we wanted to put a lot of effort in restyling them. And a lot of the new features did light up just in role centers in the spring release. So let's go through the major ones of them. And we start with the navigation. So as Arena mentioned yesterday during the keynote, we have a new navigation paradigm. We got rid of the side navigation, and we aligned to new and modern interfaces for web applications today, and put it on top. It means that now we save space, we free up space for what is more important, which is your content in the page, and we just occupy a little tiny bit of the top space of our pages. And that's where navigation bars today are expected to be by users in the internet and in the cloud world. And all your areas are just going to be there. Next, we have our action bar. So, as you probably noticed, there is no more ribbon. And Arena was pretty clear on that. We got rid of that. And don't get me wrong, it's not like I had the ribbon. It's not like we did hate the ribbon. It was a nice control, but it wasn't perfect. It had a very nice goal in mind, which was bringing all the actions one click away from you. And it did succeed in this objective. The problem is that as a downside, the ribbon got very crowded with different controls, different items. And especially for beginners, for users that did use the product for the first time, for them it was quite hard to find their way around in a sea of so many controls. And it was not so easy to spot the actions they wanted to use. So that's why we decided, we recognized that, Office recognized that, we followed along, and we decided to, okay, let's opt for a different paradigm. And that's where the action bar comes into place. In the role center, it takes the form of a list of items, which is pretty flexible. And in here, you see that when it is rendered next to another control, it actually uses a wrapped layout. But we will see that if there is no other artifacts rendered next to it, it will actually take the whole space. So it's very flexible control. And all familiar concepts like grouping are still there. There is a little bit of effort on your side, though, because now the concepts are a little bit different. So if you want your actions to light up into these new controls, you need to rework the grouping and rework the promotion policy that you have. So there is this little work to do. We went through that, and you will have to go through that, but it's really worth it. Next, we have queues. So if you say role center, the first thing I think about is queues, because they're so prominent, eye-catching. They're engineered to basically display in a little tiny area very complex information and data. And we recognize they're very important, so we refresh them. We actually give you the ability to render them in 2 different modes. We have a normal layout and we have a wide layout. A wide layout is fit for data that requires more than 1 and 2 digits. So when you have certain values that, for example, decimal values, those need more space, we know that. So let's use more space, and that's where the wide layout comes in place. And of course, all the familiar concepts of queues are still there. It's possible to define actions on them, and it's possible we still have sentiments, just a bit of different colors, and a better styling, and now refreshed. Last but not least, a new headline control. This is a brand new control. Rina and Vincent showed you yesterday how powerful it can be. Let me go through that a little bit more. So the headline control is part of this new experience we want to bring in Business Central. The whole idea is that we want Business Central to look like a newspaper. Every morning, you read the newspaper about your business, and you want to see big headlines when it comes to breaking news or something important that you need to know about your business. And those are what headlines are for. So as developers, you can code these headlines, and you can, in a carousel, display messages to the user. And you can make them actionable as well. So prominent, actionable, and a brand new experience. And even though the control is very powerful, it is very easy to actually develop that. But let's see all these things in action. So let me switch to my demo. And there's not one. This is the one. So, okay, let's just refresh it. So role centers. Ta-da, here we go. So as I already told you, the navigation bar is here on top. So when designing the navigation bar, we had exploration as design objective. So you can, the new idea of this navigation paradigm is now that the user can explore the different sections of your application without navigating into them directly. So this is very important because the user can keep the context while still exploring the different areas of your product. And this is very effective. It has proved to be a very good pattern. And that's what we wanted to bring in Business Central. Nothing to do on your side. Here it just comes for free, no new metadata. It will just light up. The action bar. As I told you, here it is, rendered in a little wrapped up layout. You will see later that if the headline control is not there, it will take the whole space. So very flexible as well. You can see here that different icons are used. And for reports, for other actions, new actions. The way you control these is by placing these actions in the proper groups. So go ahead, the documentation is very clear on that, and you can do that little work which is required to have your actions properly rendered on screen in this new control. Cues, here they are. Usual concepts, sentiments are there, as I told you. They're actionable, and they bring the usual experience, refreshed. And then the headline control. So I told you that, as you can see, the headline control can display in a carousel different messages, and you can define actions on them. The headline control is reloaded every time you load the page. And you can, it's dynamic. You code it, and it can bring up a lot of insights about the business inside your application. And I told you it is very powerful, but it's actually very, very easy to code and develop.
Andrea, can we prove that?
Yep, okay.
I think coding demo is in place.
Let's do that, and let's switch to my demo environment. Here it is, my development environment. I'm so excited, this is the first time I do an AL session. I used to go CAL, now it's AL. So, let's try this thing. We are going to create a page extension and modify our role center in a tenant that I just provisioned. And I'm going to create my own headline control with my own headlines. And I'm going to replace that in the business manager role center. So let's start this. Yesterday you saw with Vincent how to quickly create an AL project. Alt-A, Alt-L, you create a new project, you provision a tenant, and that's it. So I've done this thing already. So here it is, I'm connected to my tenant already, and I have VS Code ready for development. So the first thing I want to do is I want to modify the role, the business manager role center. So I want to start from that page. Who remembers the page number of the business manager role center? Again? 9005? No. 4 digits. Starts with a 9. Again? 9022? Yep. Correct. Yeah, a bit wide there, but fair enough. Where are you, sir?
It was in the ballpark.
Okay, let's 1, 2, 3, and there you go. Perfect. So let's move on. Yeah, 9022. So that's the page that I want. And yeah, that's the role center, saved. So now let's start creating a few files. So actually, I don't need many files, just two. So the first file I'm going to create is, I'm going to call it my headline, no, actually, my head extension.al, and this is going to host my extension, my page extension. But before doing that, I want to create the page part. So as you know, if you want to create a new headline control, you need to create a headline part that you're going to use inside a page. So this one is going to be that part. So let's call it my head part.al. And let's start from here. Let's start coding the headline control. Now, the thing is that it's easy to code it. You define the page, you give it the layout. But the point is that we don't really do these things. As programmers, it's just nice to start from a snippet. And it's pretty standard way of doing things. So what I want to do is show you how quick it is to just get to our documentation and find the documentation for the headline control. And just that snippet, that's the only thing we need to start from. So let's go. Business Central, headline control, and that's here. And we are given the basic structure of a headline control just from our documentation page. So I'm just going to use that. Why not? And here it is. I'm just going to give it a different number because I want to use 50, 100 for the page extension, and I'm just going to rename it my head. And that's it. These are the 4 different messages that we want to display, and we can just modify them. Microsoft Business Central rocks. That's it. That's my headline. That's done. So let's go back to the page extension, and let's start that. So let's just declare a page extension, and let's just use a number. As I told you, 5100 is pretty neat. And we can call it my extension. And after that, we can just tell it to extend an existing page. So as you can see, IntelliSense in Visual Studio Code already gives me some hints, so I can pinpoint the page, that remembering numbers or anything like that. So here I am, I'm coding my page extension. Let's create a new layout section, because that's what I want to do. I want to modify the layout. And what do we want to do? What I want to do is I want to replace the existing headline control. It means that I'm going to hide the existing one, and I'm going to add the one that I just created. So it means that I'm going to modify something. So I don't know which control it is. I should look at the page structure and everything, but you see, Visual Studio Code is just very, very nice and gives me the caption. So you see here, control 139 gives me the caption. It's the headline, RC Business control. So I'm just going to use that. That's the control I want to use. And as I said, I'm going to set visibility to false. Cool, so far so good. Now I've hidden the control, and I can add the one that I just created, always after the same one. And I want to add a part, of course. So let's give it a name, my part. And then I'm going to point to my head, the one I just created. And let me just give it a caption. and that's it. That's done. Seems like there are no errors. Control F5, that gets published. And we will see it lighting up in my browser in a few seconds. So it will connect to my tenant that I've already provisioned and open that for me. And it should go straight to the role center. And my new headline should just be there. No, it's not there. Why? Yes! Wow, that was quick. And here's, I thought it was some kind of advanced question. Cool. Got it? Yeah. Yes, precisely. So the application area. So application area needs to be set in order for the control to be lit up. So, and here it is, application area, all. And we need to do this not just for the part, but also for each single one of these controls in the headline control that I just created. Control save, and my syntax is now neat and perfect. Control F5, you know the drill. It's going to publish it, and it's going to open another, in another tab, Business Central. And now I should see my headline control. And there it is. So Microsoft Business Central rocks. So as easy as that, Thomas.
That's cool.
Is it enough?
I think you proved the point.
Okay, cool. Moving on. Yeah. Spring release, done. Check. Fall release. So let's talk about that. Because in the fall release, what we decided to do is, of course, to roll out the rest of codename Modena to the other pages that we have. So, and in the context of that effort, we have introduced a bunch of new controls. Let's go through them. Page inspired layout. I have a question for you. How many of you have messy desks? Oh, come on, don't. You're lying. Okay, yeah, bring up those hands. So my father used to complain a lot when I was living with my father and my mother, and about my desk. It was very messy. But let's face it, that's not mess. That's our own definition of order. And we have that. And our customers do as well. Their desks are just pile of sales invoices, sales order quotes. And that's what we wanted to bring in Business Central, the good parts of it. So this experience can be seen in the new stack layout, which provides to the user visually the context, both the navigation context, but also the flow he has been through up to that point, the operation, the process that he has done so far. So it brings up the context, and it is very important. The other thing I want to light up, Orina mentioned that we have a back button, but that's a tiny improvement. But it's so important because it brings up a very consistent experience across all pages. And it is very good for first users. The other thing is, of course, the action bar. The action bar is the new home for our actions. You've seen that in the role center. In our pages, though, it looks different. Of course, no more ribbon, even in card, documents, worksheets. We have the action bar there as well. And the new paradigm now is used for displaying your actions. Again, there is a little bit of effort there, because you need to rework the grouping of your actions in order for them to be properly displayed and available to your users. But apart from that, then the new control is just going to work in your applications, and take the best of it, do this little bit of grouping, it's really worth it. Action bar also for page parts. So if you remember previously, the actions for page parts used to be placed in the ribbon in a special contextual tab. It was really difficult for our customers and users to relate that those actions were referring to that page part. We understood that, especially for beginners, it was very difficult to relate, to get this association. So we decided to work on that. So we got rid of the ribbon, and we have the action bar, but instead of placing the contextual actions inside the action bar, we decided to create a contextual action bar for parts, which is closer to the part, so it's more relatable, And it's much easier to associate these actions to the part. And also, they are not polluting the page action bar. It means there is more space for other actions. And that is very important. The new header. We have worked on restyling the titles and the subtitle, and we have created a special place for CRUD system actions. The edit toggle is there, the new action is there, the delete action is there. It's also much easier to identify the page view mode. So you can easily understand if you're in edit mode or view mode, thanks to the toggle just there in a prominent area. Before, these actions were in the ribbon, in the home tab, but not so prominent. And again, these are out of the action bar. It means they're not polluting your actions, so there is more space for your actions. Navigation actions, those are always in the spirit of not polluting the action bar with platform stuff. We have extracted those that were previously placed in the ribbon in kind of obscure area there, and now they're placed in the middle of the page in a familiar place, and in a place where they're expected to be. And we have decided to bring up this nice browsing experience as a newspaper. You saw the animation yesterday with Arena. And that's just what user expects us to do, where they expect those actions to be there. That's just platform doing that. There is no effort on your side, no new metadata, nothing like that. And we have the ability of setting a wide layout for our pages. Now, in the spirit of having this paper layout in our pages, of course, our pages now take less space. But as users, you might want to use the full size of your screen because just you want it, or for whatever other reason. So that's why we give you the ability to expand the page and take advantage of the whole screen size you have, no matter how big your screen is. And last but not least, we have decided to restyle our controls. They look more modern, they look refreshed. Our edit actions, assist edit, lookup, date picker, new Boolean controls, and so on, all new and refreshed. We have increased the spacing between them, so it's easier to, the whole page is more readable, basically. And we have added just a little tiny feature, which is so effective, connecting dots, that help the user figure out which field the caption refers to, following along. It's a good UI pattern, actually. And well, with that, let's see all these things in action. So let's go back to my tenant. And well, let's open a customer. Here it is. And let's just create a new sales invoice. You see, the stack layout is giving me the context. I know that the page before was the customer page I'm creating the sales invoice for. So I can quickly click on the gray area and go back to that page. So this is another paradigm to go back. I can also use escape just by using the keyboard. And that's it's also, as you can see, a navigation pattern. And let's just create another document, a sales order this time. And the back button helps me if I am a new user and I don't know that by clicking on the gray area I can be brought back. I can always use the back button, and there I am. It seems a small thing, but it is so important for new users so they will never get lost in our pages. And next, we have our action bar. So, as I told you, now our actions all reside in this new control, basically. It takes so little space compared to the ribbon. It means more space for your content. You might argue, okay, Andrea, that's cool, but now all my actions are one more click away compared to the ribbon. It's not entirely true, because the first time they might be, but remember that you have the option to pin the pane, so that next time your actions are going to be there just one click away for real. And you can, of course, unpin it and hide it. So very flexible. The the same goes for the contextual action bar. So if I create a new sales invoice, you will see that now lines, my page bar lines also features a page action, and same exact things. It's the same control matches are in there. I need to rework a little bit on the grouping in order to make my actions appear where I want them to appear. As I said, refreshed titles, and my toggle is now here in a prominent position, telling me precisely which mode I am in. Also, let's talk about the page layout. As you can see, our pages now look thinner, inspired by the paper layout, but if I want, I can expand them, and you saw that before. This is especially true when you have fact boxes. Fact boxes occupy the side area, and it means there is less space in total. That's why we automatically enter wide layout when you open a fact box. And familiar concepts are still there. We memorize the states, so next time you open another sales invoice, the fact box is going to be in the same state as it was before. If you left it open, it's going to be open. If you left it closed, it's going to be closed. And let me go back. And as I told you, our new navigation actions are there. So the browsing experience across records is much nicer than before. And those controls are much more discoverable. And the new controls now are in place, refreshed as well, and all of them are being designed with accessibility in mind. So just by using the keyboard, you can navigate across them, and keyboard only, you can just fill values in your page in a very familiar way. And that's it from me, Thomas.
Yeah, Andrea, that was really good demos. I especially liked the one with modern dev experience.
That was cool.
I think it reminds me so much of the front-end development and experience.
Yeah, it feels like just plain development to me.
You know, you have a browser on one side, you have your ID on the other side.
Yep.
You change the code, hit save, it hot reloads, you see the changes in your browser.
It was very effective. I love it.
It's really amazing that we can have that for application developers in Business Central. So let's talk about productivity. Productivity is another key area where we continuously invest. We understand how important productivity it is for our users. We want them to enable users to complete their tasks faster. We also want to reduce the barrier of switching to cloud. And finally, we want to reimagine the productivity for the web. So it's not only about taking the features which we had previously and just copying them. It's thinking more broadly what makes sense on a web and reimagining those experiences and creating an awesome, productive web client. And one of those features is Tell Me. Tell me what you want to do is such a natural question to ask. And Tell Me is evolution of what we previously called page search. Page search was okay if you exactly knew what you're looking for, which is kind of contradicting to action of looking for something. But we looked around and we tried to find similar problems other products are trying to solve with having a lot of complexity and a lot of actions in a product and balancing that with discoverability for the end user. And we fell in love with how Office solved it. And they solved it with exactly the same, Tell Me, and we wanted to bring that to Business Central. So Tell Me is in exactly the same place as page search was, but now it's more powerful and it's more contextual. So Tell Me dialogue. When you search for something, it first shows the actions from the root page you are on. So if you're on sales order, it's going to show actions matching your search term on sales order. Then, after that, we have grouping of different search results based on the category, usage category. And next we show page and tasks. And user always has an option to expand and see more detailed view, but we first show a couple of results which matches the search query the best. Next, we have okay. The clicker stopped working.
That's kind of strange.
Let's go quickly. So next, we have reports, and finally we have documentation. That's another completely new thing. So when you search, if you are using cloud product, we also surface documentation results from Microsoft Business Central online docs. And currently, it's limited only for cloud solution, and we only surface our documentation, but we're investigating different sources of information which we could be including here, and we see a lot of potential there, also for our partners. So next, let's see how it works in action. So you saw a bit of that in the keynote, because it is truly our new favorite keyboard shortcut, and that is Alt-Q. So when you hit Alt-Q, Tell Me appears, and it asks what you want to do. Well, in this case, I would actually want to know what are the limitations of Tell Me. How do you find that? Well, you ask Tell Me. Tell me about Tell Me. And in documentation, actually, we get first matches, frequently asked questions about Tell Me. Okay, let's see. And are all actions from my current page discoverable in Tell Me? Well, no, it's only from the root page, so actions from sub-pages will not surface, at least at this stage. So that was cool. We just learned something. Let's try some different scenario. Let's say I want to create a customer quote. So first, I will search for customer, and I want the customer list. I'll just hit enter, and by the way, I'm just using my keyboard. I'm trying to do this entire scenario just using keyboard shortcuts, no mouse, no touchpad. So focus is still in customers. So now I can pick my customer, and I'll pick Alpine Ski House. And I could open the customer, but I kind of already selected the customer. So let's hit Alt-Q again, and then press Q. So actually, first action is matching this Q is sales quote. So only thing I need to do is hit enter again, because we by default will activate the first result if you hit enter. So hit enter, and it creates a sales quote. Still, haven't used mouse in any way, using just Tell Me, combination of shortcuts, and yeah, it's all very productive user experience, and that is what we're trying to achieve here. So next, let's talk about some dev tips, like what does it mean for you? So first, search for actions, it just works. You don't have to do anything to activate that. But you need to set more informative captions on pages and reports, because we use the caption to do actual matching of the search terms. So the more informative captions you set, the better the search will be. Next, you need to opt in to Tell Me for your pages and reports by setting usage category property. And the property you pick actually will decide where the page or report goes. You saw those two categories with pages and tasks and reports. Yeah. And lastly, documentation only includes online help docs currently. And it does, and will not surface anything on-prem. So on-prem, that feature is not activated. It only works on cloud. So we saw global, well, Tell Me is in a way a global search with a touch of contextual awareness. Then you also are familiar with list, like cross-column search in lists, which is local search. But what does the user do when he tried all of those options and he can no longer come up with a better search term? He uses filtering. And filtering was something we didn't have in a web client, and we wanted to change that. We looked around, and again, I'm just reiterating that we always trying to not just copy what we had, but actually reimagine it for the web and make it better. So we looked at a lot of websites, and users already are kind of familiar with filtering if they ever booked a flight or a hotel. And usually you find it in a website, you do the search, you see your flights, and then you do filtering on certain categories. And that usually, the filter pane is on the left side of the page. And we wanted to keep that pattern, so no matter if it's an experienced user, or if it's a new user, Business Central feels just familiar. And when that pane opens in a list page, you just immediately know what it does. It's filtering. So we wanted to make it better. And let's break it down what the filtering pane does. First of all, you can select any number of columns and enter your filtering expressions. And we support all previously supported filtering expressions like date expressions, application-defined tokens, ranges, and so on, logical operators, all of that, still there. Next, we also reintroduced flow filters. So column filters, you could think that they are for reducing the amount of results you get, and flow filters are reducing the amount of data used for the computed values in those records. And lastly, one of the things where we pushed the web experience further, we introduced a stateful modification of filters. So you can actually work on your filters, you can close the pane, navigate away, navigate back with the same navigation action, and your filters are still gonna be there, as long as your session lives. When the session expires, they'll be discarded. For now, we don't have the save views, so you could modify a view and save it as a different view, but that's something we are looking in very near future. And also, filter pane now accommodates all the views, so they are next to the filters, so everything is contextual. When you modify filter on the view name actually becomes italic to indicate that this is like a dirty, and eventually you'll be able to save it. So let's see how it works. So we'll go to items. And again, I will try to prove our commitment to productivity by using all the new shortcuts and all the new goodies we introduced in spring and fall. So I have an items list, and I'm actually just interested in chairs. So I'll hit F3, and then immediately the search field is focused. So I'll type in chair, and this is the first level of reducing the data set. It's just using free text search, cross-column search. So now I get all the items matching a keyword chair. But I see that, and by the way, the focus is still in search. And I want to do something with the grid. So I'll hit F3 again, and now I'm back in the grid without clicking. I'm just back in the grid, and I continue my flow. So I see a lot of items have quantity on hand 0. And that is not very useful. I don't want to have those. So what I will do, I will hit Alt, Shift, F3. And what this keyboard shortcut does, it creates a filter line with column I was on in the grid with no value. You can also filter to this value, and it's additive, so you can keep filtering on different values, and they will be pre-filled. But this time, I just want to enter greater than 0. And it will be activated when I leave the field. So how do I jump back into grid? I hit Control Enter, and I'm back at exactly the same column I was before. So I did all of this data selection actions, and I was able to do that all of it just by using keyboard shortcuts. So next, it kind of looks okay. We filtered the uninteresting items. Now let's do something. So these items are from all locations, but I am actually interested in items which have quantities in certain locations. So I'll use another keyboard shortcut, which is Control-Shift-F3, and I'm actually focused at the flow filters. And this is another area where we push the experience further. So now when you're selecting a column, we're actually giving you searches to type experience in a field. So if I type location, it automatically autofills the name, and I can say east or main. And again, I can hit Control Enter and go back to a grid. And what just happened, first of all, I searched for all the items which match chair. Then I removed all the items which have no quantity on hand. And then I changed the flow filter to change the quantity to only take into account items from locations in east and main. And since some of them didn't have any, they got also filtered out because of the first filter. And I did all of this just by using keyboard. So I was working on a grid. And next, let's see, if I want to know more about filters and expressions, I'll just use tell me again. And we have awesome documentation explaining you all the things you can do with filtering. It's basically a reiteration of, well, that was not the result. But let's see, filter. Yes. So you can find all the documentation of different expressions for search, expressions we support. The same goes for filtering, ranges, and it's just great documentation material. It takes a bit of, I can imagine it takes a bit of time to learn this secret language of filtering, but it's really powerful. And now it's available in a web client. Next, I want to show one more thing with expressions. So if I go to sales orders, and I can expand filter pane also by using an action on a page. And I want to filter sales orders based on, actually, let's give us a bit more space. So that's a good point.
That's a good point, yeah.
Yes, we need to add that shortcut. I remember that. So, wait, I was actually one sales invoices. Is that I wanted to find something with dates. Let's do due date. And I want everything greater than today minus 7 months. And once I leave the field, the expression will be evaluated and it computes the date. So all the richness of filtering and expressions, application-defined tokens, is still supported. Next, copy and paste. I imagine everyone is thinking, of course, that should just work, right? But it's not always, the story is not always that simple. Copying text, values, it is pretty straightforward and we can do it. But we want to, again, push the experience further on the web, and we want contextual copy and pasting. So now you can do copy and paste of rows in same list. You can do copy and paste to similar lists as long as column, order, count, and types matches. You can also do copy and pasting from other productivity offerings like Excel, Outlook, and the same restrictions apply with column order, types, count. And you can do it other way around, copying data from Business Central into other productivity products. And you also, as you saw in Keynote, you get a bit of more formatting. So it's not just dumping the tabular data in Outlook. We actually format it for you using HTML, so it looks nicer. It matches the Business Central theming. And now I would like to show you one of the awesome scenarios which we enabled. So when I showed tell me, I partially completed the sales quote scenario. I didn't really fill in the lines, right? So let's complete that. Let's do it again. Just using keyboard this time. Quote. So now we have code, but we don't have any lines. And let's imagine that our sales agent already sent an item catalog to a customer, and since he's not very tech savvy, he just used Excel. To write down what customer wants. And they agreed on some special prices based on how many items they are ordering. So I have just tabular data in Excel. It happens to match the number of columns, the types, and the ordering. So I'm going to just hit Control C. I'll copy it. I will come back to Business Central. I will tab into a grid to a first empty column. I'll hit Control V, and all the lines are filled in. I'm done. Now I hit.
Yeah.
Thank you.
An applause for that.
And last thing to do, tell me how to release it, and then I can. So I hit tell me. And oh, by the way, also when I pasted, all the values were computed, so the amounts matches and everything is correct. So now I only need to call tell me again and do release. And that's it, I'm done. And again, I could have completed this scenario just using my keyboard. I didn't need to enter all of these lines manually. You can figure out productivity patterns which works for you. And we're trying to constantly improve them and just connect things together so everything works seamlessly. Let's go back to the demo. So keyboard shortcuts. This release, well, these two releases in spring and fall, in total we introduced 11 new shortcuts. I think in total now we have over 40 shortcuts. And again, it feels like, yeah, let's just copy all the shortcuts which we already had in previous clients and bring that to the web. But again, story is not as simple as that. We're trying to look at what kind of patterns users are expecting in the web, what they are used to, what they are used to from other websites, what they're used to from different products, and what they know already from Windows client. So taking all of this information and we're trying to come up with a coherent story which makes sense for the web and still pushes the productivity experience further. And we don't really expect that everyone will just learn the new shortcuts, especially the ones which don't necessarily match Windows client. So we prepared great documentation listing all the shortcuts, explaining what they do. And we also have a printable cheat sheet, which you can put on your desk. And you can also, I don't know, quiz your colleague until he remembers all of them. That could be a game.
I'll master them all.
Yeah. Okay, I'll just give a second if you're taking pictures, but we'll share the slides later. Accessibility. Accessibility is one of those things which Microsoft feels very strongly about. Microsoft has a commitment to not ship any new software which is not accessible. Because we want to be inclusive to the workforce, to the broad workforce, and enable everyone to work with our products. Doesn't matter if you're using keyboard or using assistive technologies. We want, and the big thing is that Business Central is now accessible. And what does that mean? That means that any partner building a solution on Business Central is by default, well, on a desktop, accessible. So we are delivering on Microsoft's wide commitment to accessibility and inclusive workforce. We also committed to maintain this rating and push it forward, and we also do the same on mobile next. And investing in accessibility contributes to the broad experience of productivity. As I said, when you enable your product to work really well with keyboard, you enable at the same time all kinds of productivity features which you didn't imagine first. And when we build new components for modern UI, everything was built from ground up to be accessible, and that will be our commitment in the future. So one last thing is one app. One application is a change we did when we introduced Business Central branding in spring, where we aligned cloud and on-premise brands, and we wanted this to be reflected in our mobile applications too. So previously, we had two mobile applications. We had Dynamics NAV, and we had Financials. So we rebranded Financials to be Business Central and enabled it to connect to cloud and on-premise tenants. So now there's only one app with one branding, and you don't have this duality anymore. We still have the Dynamics NAV app. It will be in the store if you need to connect to Dynamics NAV tenants 2018 and previous. If you use Business Central, you just use Business Central app, and it connects to both. And something one of our PMs forced me to say, because he loved iPhone X, we also support iPhone X. But for me, we are building a cloud product, and people just expect us that we will be constantly uptaking the new things. So yeah, we have iPhone X support. And now I would like to invite to the stage Yevgeny, who is one of engineering managers from our internal teams, who will tell more about building a customer-grade product using Business Central platform for Office users.
Thank you so much, Tomas. Great demos. Did you like what you've seen so far? Yes, you did. We all did. Amazing stuff. All right, so my team always telling me, Yevgeny, if you cannot make a memorable presentation, at least try to make it short. So that will be the goal for now. 1 year ago, Microsoft released a new product as a part of Office 365, which is called Microsoft Invoicing. In those days, it was proudly built based on a project on a reef, or that's how we called our services back then. And the product evolves over the year, and as we're going to release a new version of it in the upcoming weeks, we decided to take a radical change as an organization and move from an Office 365 look and feel to Business Central modern user experience. And by the way, now you know how the Modena came in from. Modena came from a modern Navision, so we just call it Modena for now. And the challenge for us was because our users as a consumers, and the consumer is very different to the Business Central user because he had a choice. If the software doesn't reflect or feel in a way how he expected, if it feels him dumb, we will just lose him right away. So the ability to reach consumer soul is something very unique for us. So let me show you how the product is look, which we're going to ship in a couple of weeks in North America, in UK, based on our Modena stack. So I'm going to switch back to our demo. All right, so first of all, I'm a consumer. I'm not a technical guy. I don't know anything about Business Central, and it even exists. I start my work here. So I go to office.com, where all my application is, my beautiful PowerPoint, Word, Excel. And here I can see a new product called Invoicing. So I'm going to just click this one. The first thing you can notice, but the user will never do, we use the businesscentral.dynamics.com invoicing as a way to get there. That's where we utilize our fixed client endpoint, so we can find a tenant in milliseconds for you and just bring this experience right away. So the first thing you will notice for me is my home page. But it's a classical role center. And if you look on the content, it's so straightforward, so I don't even explain it to you. So I see my main list of actions, I can see my numbers, I can see my call to actions, and then I see my graphs. And actually, the users use the term colorful insight when they relate to what they see on the screen right away. So as you might notice, we don't have headline control, partially because we don't have a lot of data to show there, but also partially because we wanted to save some space. So what I want you to do now, I just want you quickly look what you see on the screen. So as a new consumer user, I see something called Get Started. And what we figure out that it's very hard sometimes can be to explain how to set up a system or to find where all settings are. So what we do here, just on his eyes, we can promote, here's all the settings you can do if you want to set up your product. From business information, your email integrations, if you want to integrate to different ERP systems, so on and so forth. Sometimes you want to promote a specific setup action. So in this case, we decided to show him, here's the easiest way for you to set up your online payments. It's just a sub-page out of all the settings you've seen before. And when the user completes this task, we can just change visibility of this task so he won't see it anymore. So we use this actionable queue section also to showcase some of the setup tasks. And once we complete, we can just move away. Now, let me show you how my entities looks like. So here's my invoicing list. And it's very straightforward for you and for me. I can clearly see a lot of data. I can copy to Excel. I can definitely see when I have a problem with the invoices, like here, I want to take an action. Now, if I'm going to my customer list, what's new for us and as a user, I can use different tile layout. And here's a picture which my daughter drew. But for me as a user, it brings a little bit more shiny experience when I deal with my customer data, because when I compare my contacts from my phone, from Exchange, I usually bring a lot of image information with me. I can always press my home button to go home, which is very, very important because I'll never get lost. So let me quickly create a new invoice for you or see how the experience looks like. So I press the plus button. Again, I don't need to sync, which is great, so you don't lose me so far. I'm pressing the plus button. I have this beautiful new page layout. I have a field which I need to fill out. As I start to type, you don't see my fingers, but the system simply reacts exactly what I would expect it to do. So, and that's actually very, very great. So in this case, I just select the customer. I see it's a wrong pronunciation, but it's my horrible English. And then on the right side for me, and on the right side for you, we use a fact box to put a little bit more information about this customer if you interacted with the past. So I'm going to do the same, just add one invoice line, and that's really it. Now, what should I do next? Well, in this case, it's very straightforward. My action bar is unzipped by default, so I can clearly see an action I can take. In this case, I can go ahead and preview my invoice. And this is like a first time we derive slightly from Business Central behavior. Instead of just download a document, we'll just use our PDF control to preview it right away. So you can see here's my professional looking invoice, which I'm going to send. I can just check my final details. And finally, I can just send it to Alice in the Wonderland in 2 clicks. In 2 clicks. When my invoice is sent, what's happening? The system takes me back when I just started to my home page. And what I can see right away is that my colorful insights got immediately refreshed, exactly as you can say I would expect, and it just worked like that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to drill down a little bit in my colorful insights. So here's an Alice in the Wonderland, and I saw some history with her, and there was an overdue invoice, and so on and so forth. So as I navigate through the system in this new modern experience, for me, it's very, very easy to go back. And for the consumer, it's super essential because we'll never get him lost. All right, it was a very, very short demo, as I promised. So let's summarize what we've just seen. You've seen a modern consumer product which Microsoft is going to ship in upcoming weeks, which is powered by the Business Central platform. You've seen how the new look and feel and how we can use the space of the components to achieve the experience we want to build. I cannot overstate how much accessibility is important for Microsoft. We would never, ever able to ship any product as a part of Office 365, which is the biggest productivity suite in the world, like 130 million customers, if our platform wasn't accessible from day one. Nor we were able to ship any product under Microsoft brand, which doesn't have a high level of accessibility requirements and proficiency by default. I put a couple of quotes, which I think is interesting to reflect for this audience. One is the observation we had as a group when we built this product. It's how great Modena works for simple scenarios. When you think about all the demos seen today, is built based on NAV heritage. So it's a lot of actions, a lot of action groups, it's a lot of content. But in our simple case, or you can say straightforward cases, we can also achieve very nice user experience, and we're just amazing about that. When we show this work to our formal general manager, Marco, that was a quote which he shared with all our organization, basically saying that he really inspired us as product groups and also you as partners to take all this modern work and build very nice experiences for the end users, which is simple and easy to use. Finally, another quote I want to share with you. So here is a comment which one of our customers left to us. So what he said, or she said, new invoicing is so pretty, and there was a smile in the end. But what she really, really mean that it's not invoicing, that it's our new modern Navision experience is so pretty. And what it really means for this audience, that our Business Central platform is very pretty. And when you get a comment like that from a consumer, it's very, very hard to, I mean, it's not granted. It's very, very hard to deserve the try to put this quote on the stage. Because when consumers put comments like that, it usually means it's more than look and feel. It's something about how you interact with the product, how natural things work, and it just delight you on a good day. So this is the message you want to deliver today, that you've seen a lot of great demos of small things here and here, but it should allow you as a partner and us as a Microsoft to build a platform so we can deliver truly beautiful consumer-ready experiences. Now, in fact, we always provide a lot of feedback based on this work to have a platform, all the improvements we can do to make it even better. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to invite the stage back Tomas and Andrea to show what's coming very, very shortly to make the story even great. Thank you. Was it good?
Thank you, Evgeny, for a great story. So now, let's talk about what's coming next. I'm really sure that everyone here came for this moment to see something which we are working in progress, which no one has seen yet. And there's always comes a big disclaimer that things you will see next is work in progress. We are not guaranteed that features will look exactly the same when they ship in the spring, and if they definitely gonna ship in spring. If you want to hear more about our release notes, they will be announced after New Year, and there will be a stronger commitment and a list of things which will be included in spring release. But with all of these disclaimers, let's see what's coming next, Andrea.
Yeah. So last year, back on this stage, I concluded our presentation with a sneak peek of Modena. And now I would like to demo one new feature we're working on at the moment, still work in progress. You saw in one of Tomas' demos, you were filling an invoice. What was that sales order? You were tabbing a lot, man.
That was a sales quote.
A sales quote. Yeah, he was tap, 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 tap. Well, he was filling in the document, basically. He was tabbing too much. And we have a feature for avoiding users to tap too much, but just go straight to the fields that we want them to go to in order to fill in the document. You know which feature is that? Yes, precisely. You deserve a shirt. Where are you? Again? The same one? Nah. Okay, you already have one. We'll try to figure out another question. But yes, quick entry. So quick entry as, well, it's a feature. It's one of those features you have in the Windows client that web client still doesn't have. Well,
it kind of had.
That's coming, yeah. And it's a work in progress. I'm delighted to tell you that it's work in progress. We're making it happen in the web client. But as Tomas said, we don't just fill the gap with the Windows client and just blindly copy the feature into the web client. What we try to do is asking ourselves, does this feature make sense in the new world? If it does, how can we improve it in order to increase the experience and increase productivity and proficiency in general? And that's also the question that we ask ourselves when it comes to quick entry. So we decided to, yes, let's bring support for quick entry, but let's also add something more to improve the whole scenario. So no slides, let's just go straight to the demo. And well, let's create a new sales invoice. So I am on my tenant here, and I'm going to use the keyboard, of course. Quick entry is about keyboarding. So Alt, arrow down. I'm going to pick customer. And I have it. And now guess what? I'm going to move using Enter. And by using Enter, I'm moving towards the different fields. Now, the feature was partially supported in the web client, but now there is full support. So I can jump straight into the grid by just hitting Enter. So space, I can get the item, okay, that's it. Always with keyboarding, I'm gonna go Alt arrow down, I'm going to select, I want a front wheel. Enter, and that's my line has been saved. Enter, and then enter, jumping to quantity, and I'm setting it to 2. Cool. Enter again, and I go straight to line discount, because that's how the developer has designed experience. But I just realized that actually I don't need to. I want 3 of them. So I could go Shift-Tab, but Shift-Tab, I would need to go 1, 2, 3 times Shift-Tab in order to reach the quantity field. Well, not really. Introducing Shift-Enter. And with Shift-Enter, I am reverse quick entering the experience, has to say, and I can fix it. So, I mean, quick entry was designed to be a forward-only experience, as if humans did not make mistakes. But we make mistakes. We are humans after all, so we just recognize that, and we implemented this new feature, which extends the quick entry experience. So reverse quick entry is also possible using the combination Shift-Enter. So I made my edit, and now, well, of course, the notification updates. And here I am. I just completed my, my line. Now, I want to go out of it because I want to keep filling out stuff in my invoice. And if I hit Enter again, the quick entry, how it behaves is that it will go through the different lines of the grid until reaching the last quick entry reachable field in the last row. And there, when I hit Enter, I can jump out of the grid. But the point is, I'm done. I'm actually done editing this grid. So I want to just go out. Control-Enter already lets you go out of the grid. But it will focus on the first field out of the grid, which is subtotal. And that's not where I want to be. I want to keep the quick entry experience. So introducing Control-Shift-Enter. And Control-Shift-Enter gets me out of the grid to the first quick entry reachable field out of the grid. So we have improved the experience to really get the most out of it. And here, I can move on. I can keep hitting Enter to basically reach all the fields in my page.
And Andrea, this experience, of course, will be personalizable and designable.
Yes, you will be able to set a quick entry in personalization. And if I reach the last field and keep on clicking Enter, the feature is cyclic. So you will jump to the first field of the page. Shift-Enter, you go back to the last one. So we have cyclic feature, forward, backwards, jump in the grid, out of the grid, quick jump out of the grid, all these new features. And quick entry, we're working on that, and it's going just to be amazing.
Awesome, Andrea.
That's it for me.
Okay. I will show you something which kind of was mentioned in the keynote. It's the new virtual grid experience. So we got a lot of feedback that, oh yeah, please, Andrea, that our grids are quite slow to load on web client, and they also are a bit, also you can, it's very noticeable when you switch the list layout type. So what we did, and we saw what you saw in the keynote presented by Horina, is that we virtualized the grid. So we actually are rendering only the rows which are visible to the user. That means that we can load a lot more data without paying the cost of rendering it. And that is a common pattern which we adopted and partially built using some great technology from React. And another set of gain when we virtualize the grid, we also reduce the memory footprint. That means that we are a better citizen in a browser. We're consuming less memory. That means less power. We are more friendly on devices which are power constrained. And basically, you can't really see where we have the new grid and where is the old grid. It's just like a lot faster. And that's awesome because users, they don't, and other thing you see here is that you can keep scrolling. And now we have this, oh, okay. My network connection, I think, died. So when we scrolling the grid, and everything here is work in progress, so that demo gods, of course, we keep showing user the loading rows so he never hits this brick wall of loading more. We don't want that experience anymore. We want to allow users to just keep scrolling, and we will continuously load more data when it becomes available from the server. Then let's go to a sales order. And here, it's a document page type. And in this page type, we have a grid, but we also have a bunch of fields on this page. And when users are trying to enter sales order lines, it's not that comfortable of an experience because you have just a tiny area for your lines. And we heard this feedback and we thought, what could we do better? Well, we could actually introduce an expand button, and guess what it does? It makes the grid full screen. And we still keep the list totals, so you see them at the bottom, because they are connected to the grid. They are the computations from the grid. And this is very much in progress, so you still see like double action bars. That will change, because we only need the contextual action bar for the grid. And another thing which we cannot do in the document page is to show the filter pane, because there's simply no space to show a filter pane. So in focus mode, we have enough space to show the filter pane, so you will be able to do your quick data entry, and the filter pane will also be expandable on the side, so you'll be able to filter for sales order lines or any lines while working in a grid, and it just works seamlessly. Another thing you might notice is this guy. A tiny, tiny indicator in the corner which says saved. What does that mean? When users, especially new users, new to Business Central, trying to create, for example, sales order, they don't not always understand what is autosave, and when we actually save something, and when we don't. So when you open a new sales order and it's a draft record, we don't see any status. But actually, if I start selecting customer name, we'll get a record ID. So it's filled, and now it says it's saved. But actually, because now the record does exist, and it is saved. So introduced a save indicator, which shows to the user when his interactions trigger a communication with the server, and when the data actually reaches the web server. So user is always aware what is his record state. Yep, that was the last sneak peek, and we have many more productivity features coming in spring, and you'll see them in release notes, which will be released sometime after New Year, so stay tuned. We would like to finish with one thing which is very important for us. It's your feedback. And one way to voice it is to use our cloud products or navigate to ideas site. In the cloud solution, you can actually hit smiley face and submit your idea. Please check the portal, submit new ideas or upvote ideas which was already posted by the community. Because this is very important for us. We're using this to prioritize our work, and this will help us to create a great platform which is ready for the cloud. Thank you.
Now it's time for your questions.
Yep.
All right. Here you go.
Just wanted to ask with the Tell Me feature, did you put in, or do you think to put in some Easter eggs? An example could be, okay, sing a song. Cortana could pop up and sings a song.
Unfortunately, we have a policy about Easter eggs. So, no.
Behind you, yeah. Let's sit around.
I just wanted to get a bit more of an idea about what's happening with personalization in the new modern UI, particularly things like resizing, reordering columns, that sort of thing.
So resizing columns is already shipped. If you enter personalization mode, you can resize the column with.
Right, so but that's only within the personalization mode. That's not something that you can do, because obviously in the old Like you could just
That, that is true. You have to enter the personalization mode to do that. And that's something we discussed, but yeah, we're trying to prioritize other things. But it's something we are thinking about.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you.
There you go. Over there. Good catch.
In the classic client, it was a great feature. You were able to mark particular records and then set to view only marked ones. So it's kind of custom filtering. Do you have something like that, or you have plans to implement this?
No, but it sounds like a great idea which you could submit to Idea site and people could upvote.
Will do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead and submit your ideas. Community also will back them up if they're valuable.
Cool. Good.
We had, I think, one there.
It'll be a long one.
My question is regarding the incline designer. Last year you showed up the incline designer where you could add the fields and then save it as an extension. One of the features that's disabled is adding a page path and actions and things like that. Are you guys working on it? Any progress or update?
So in general, we are working on designer personalization experiences in various parts of the product, and some of that will be addressed, but I cannot comment on exactly what it will be. You'll see it in the release notes. But it is in our pipeline in general to enable more and more things you can change in the incline designers and personalize it, of course. We always try to make it step by step that you can always personalize something and design at the same time. So.
Will you support themes like dark mode, high contrast, people with color blindness?
It's in the backlog. We, as I said, as I mentioned last year, the whole modern experience is basically driven by a theming engine under the hoods. So that is something that will pop up at a certain time. We're thinking about that. At the moment, we cannot make a statement precisely when it is going to be and how the experience exactly is going to be, but we're thinking about it definitely.
Because I guess users will search for it, right?
Yeah, so idea side, go there, submit that idea, and
so we laid out the architectural pieces for it, but we didn't quite yet arrive to the experience which we want to expose and how that interaction would work. But yeah, definitely submit an idea, upvote. That will help us to prioritize. There was a question there? Okay.
Okay.
We already have 2 votes. There's one there.
Oh yeah, over there.
Hi, something we saw yesterday in the keynote was the page inspector. Something we use quite a lot is the About This report feature to view the data set exported to Visual Studio. We haven't been able to find that in Business Central. Is there any plans to introduce that functionality?
I think it is, well, it's definitely something we are aware of, and again, it just boils down to prioritization. Okay. And that, again, same answers, could upload that idea to help us prioritize it, to see what the partner community feels, how they feel about this feature, and how important it is.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, behind you.
2 questions regarding the filtering. First one, is it possible to filter by all columns in the table or only those added to the page?
So you can first we show all the visible columns, but below that is actually all columns from the source table.
Okay, so it's available right now.
Yeah.
Okay, and the second one, because in the document layout of the page, is it possible to filter lines?
Yeah, so that's what I showed, that we don't have the place to show the filter pane, but we still have the previously available feature filter to this column. It's a bit clunky experience, but when we have the focus mode, we'll be able to show the full-fledged filter pane and allow all the same behavior we have on lists.
Okay, thank you.
So that's definitely work in progress.
Yeah, so the previously filtered to this column is still there in like document pages, so you can right-click on the column and you can still filter on that column.
Hi. Regional settings, are they attached to the user or to the company that I'm working for? Like a date format, point, comma,
That's a good question. I will need to get back to you.
Okay, thanks.
I think we're done. Well, is there anyone? Now is the chance.
Questions?
Oh, there's one.
Over there.
Sorry, one more.
No problem. Still have 7 minutes.
Yeah. It was, again, filtering on option fields. Is it still true that you can only filter on one option field from a drop-down? You can't select multiple?
That's correct. That is one of the missing features we have. And again, we wanted to ship the filter experience as complete as we could, but that was just one of the things which went out of scope, and we definitely want to come back and add it. And in general, we want to add multi-option selection in web client. So once that is available, we can also reuse that for the filtering pane.
Great. Thanks.
Other questions?
Okay.
Over there? No, over there, there is one.
Okay.
It's going to be a long throw.
Where?
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
So you mentioned before that you implemented some React features into the loading times on bigger lists and etc. So my question is, with the flow filters, does that help eventually loading up? How do the flow filters load up? Do they load up when the row is just loaded up from the SQL, or they're trying to load up just when you open the page?
So the computation part actually happens on a different part of the stack. So the React client side didn't really affect that. It's just about the client experience of loading massive lists. That's what it's about. So the backend for computing, loading actually data, doing computation is still the same.
Oh, thank you.
Yep. We have one here. In the middle.
One had the cube. Oh,
yeah, cube is coming. You could call it Tell Me Cube.
Tell Me Cube.
Well, I can ask a few questions.
Sure, we have time.
I was wondering, do you have brick views in subpages?
Not
No.
at the moment.
Nope.
If it's something you would like to have, again, ideas, and we will see how it plays.
The color of the text, the style texts,
Yeah.
are there more colors?
So at the moment, the theme that we have is the Modena theme. So those are the fixed color set that we have, the palette that we have. Later on, still, we need a story. We need to define all of this. We might think about adding more themes, or we might think even about letting you define your own themes and colors. But at the moment, no. In the future, we will see.
But the style text, or those ones.
Oh, the style view.
Yeah, there's no updates there.
Yeah, so those are we have kept the same palette for style views. Yeah.
We've seen that you can navigate by keyboard. Can you do it in the actions to go through the different?
Yes. It is accessible.
Yeah.
So using keyboard, it's possible to go through them.
Every single component was, again, I will just reiterate, architectured from ground up to be accessible. And we're constantly, every time we ship a release, we do testing, accessibility testing, and we make sure that we're still compliant with all the accessibility rules.
Okay. And I was wondering if you can pin one action at a time.
Right now, no, but that's a great suggestion.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
We have 3 minutes left, so still time.
Yeah, please do use the time.
Up there are 2 questions on the back seats.
I'm not going to get there.
Hello.
Hello.
On non-editable screens, the lookup doesn't seem to work.
Again, on what screens? Sorry.
On non-editable screens.
Non-handle.
Non-editable.
Editable.
Not changeable.
Not editable screens.
No.
If you are in the item entries and you want to go to the location, there's no lookup because the screen isn't editable. Is it going to be fixed, or is it by design?
If it looks like a bug, I can't tell really if it's by design. Please report it, and we'll look into it.
We can have a conversation just later, so we can process a bit more on this. Yeah. I think behind you there was another gentleman, I guess.
Thank you. So my question is, in Windows client, so users usually would have multiple screens. They can open multiple windows, and they can, they can have one page on one screen and so on. So how does it work in web client? Can we have a pop-up window that would, or they need to open multiple tabs?
Right now, you have to open multiple tabs. But it's actually something we thought about, and again, it would be awesome idea for idea side to see how people react to it and how they think it should be prioritized.
Okay, thanks.
It's definitely something we explored because we recognize this.
It's a design we are exploring and we're thinking about it.
Yeah. We have one in the front. Where's the box?
Yeah.
It's behind you.
Oh.
Box.
That was.
It's a magic box. Here you go.
Just to continue on the previous question, because if you want to have, if you need to have multiple tabs, there's also multiple sessions, right?
Correct.
So licensing is an issue.
Yeah. So definitely, if you, it is a reasoning for having the pop-up thing, because then you don't need a new session. Yes.
25 seconds.
One quick one.
One quick one then.
Yes.
Okay.
Why are all Microsoft employees using Google Chrome?
Well, so you saw in our demos that we did use Edge as well and Chrome. Our point is that we support all browsers, not just Edge. So we optimize for our experiences with Firefox. We support Firefox. We support Safari. We support Edge IE and the other browsers. So it's a multiverse with different browsers, and we support all of them.
And we just try to show the reality in our NAV demos. We use all kinds of browsers.
That's the reason that you are Googling.
Yeah.
Good point. I think he owns should get a T-shirt.
Totally. We have one left, actually. No, fair enough. Cool. Oh, that perfect. 40 minutes seconds over time. We just did it.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.